everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Maximum Octane. This is Kim Hickey here, and I have a wonderful guest for you today that you're going to love, Mr. Jay Goninen. And did I say your name right, Jay?
You nailed it. That is phenomenal. That's a tough one to say.
All right. Well, it's very important because Jay is a fellow podcaster, and so hopefully he'll give me some tips and stuff after this, because you guys know I'm kind of new at this, so still learning and then plugging along. So we got big shoes to fill here. So don't be too harsh on me, Jay. Don't be too harsh on me.
You're great. You're great. You'd never have any trouble with this stuff. You're awesome.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. And Jay and I are in some of the same circles in our automotive industry and have had the pleasure of serving on some panels together and presenting and some other things. So pretty exciting. And just wanted to tell you a little bit about Jay. He started working in his family's independent repair shop at 9. So I don't know, there might be some laws about child labor or something, but we won't talk about that in this episode. But I think there maybe could be some therapy counseling sessions after this and, all of that to go with that, working at 9. And, he's been in the industry ever since. Like many of us, you get the bug. And I always laugh that it's like Al Pacino and Godfather 3. It's like anytime you try to get out, they pull you back in again. So
they don't let you get out. Yeah.
They don't. And then you started as a tech and then moved into management, right? And then work in both the gasoline and the diesel industry, right? For our stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exciting. And then come fast forward, from 9 to now. And, 2017, you founded Find a Wrench as a way to help shops and dealerships find some qualified techs, right? Because that's a huge problem that we all have. And then when you were doing that, you kind of saw that, hey, we need to get some develop talent, find talent, and a bigger issue, the tech shortage that's going on. And then you figured out that, like many of us, you need a partner, you need a team, you need a coach, you need whatever. And you kind of hooked up with Mark, right? Mark Wilson, and then started WrenchWay. So the rest, they say, is history, right?
Yeah, you went through a lot there, and it really is, I think, something over the course of my career where I take pride in is learning from stuff that we've done and trying to fine tune it and really make it of value to people, right? And I think the whole reason we started Find a Wrench in the first place was because my history and everything that I'd been around led to the point that there weren't enough technicians, and people were really struggling. It hurt to find technicians. And even as we evolved with Find a Wrench, the company grew pretty quick. What we noticed was what worked at one point wasn't working anymore. Job boards weren't working nearly as well as they used to. We were really struggling in some capacity at helping our clients out and finding people. So I teamed up with Mark Wilson, my business partner and a friend for many, many years prior to that. He was not in the automotive space really ever prior to joining forces with me, but he had a technology background, right? Which for me, I'm terrible with technology. I'm awful with technology, but he had that end of it and just is a really, really smart businessman. And so when we kind of teamed my knowledge up with his kind of business expertise and his knowledge of technology and development of technology, we developed WrenchWay as a way to maybe stand out from the crowd differently than you could through a job board. And it's been a really cool process through all of this. I mean, going through our growing pains and really trying to figure out what brings value. Doesn't go without it, the road bumps and just like any company when you do that. But it also, I think, as we've evolved, you really start to understand the pain points of a shop and where they can get better and almost poking holes in their process. I know ATI is so good at that in terms of getting their processes in place. And it truly is. It's very similar in the working on your business, not in your business type model. And really that's what WrenchWay had evolved to was really teaching people how to go after this and not just posting on a job board and praying that you're going to find somebody, but really going after it proactively and consistently. I think consistency is such a key in both the finding good talent, good technicians right now, but also having a long-term plan on how you're going to bring more people into the industry, because we can't just keep going the same way we are. With the shortage, it results in people stealing techs from each other, and not a really conducive environment to working together with other shops, because everybody's trying to get techs from the other one. And so foundationally, I think we're very much a mission-driven company in that we want to bring more people into the industry. We want to keep the ones that we already have in the industry. That's a big problem that I don't think enough people talk about, is we'll get techs in the industry, not only techs, but service advisors, service managers, and they end up leaving the industry. And that is such a brutal piece and a brain, really almost an escape of our brain power when they leave the industry, and it's just a killer. So hopefully that's what we're working on, is the health of the industry as a whole when it comes to talent, and feel like we've learned a lot and really keep growing this WrenchWay brand. And I think that helps everybody.
Wow. Certainly to fill a need that we have desperately, you definitely had some vision there. And so let's talk about that and why there's such a need right now. And one of the panels that you and I were on before is about, how do we attract, good internal customers? How do we retain them and all of that? And that was, I think, 2 years ago. And, it's been the same conversation, like a broken record, I think, for several years now. And I know most of us in the industry, we started having an issue finding techs or, good service advisors years ago. And everybody said, boy, we better start doing something because this is changing. Not as many people are learning, trades and becoming technicians. And, every day and every year, less and less people are coming in the industry, and more people are retiring or going to a different industry. And here we are, fast forward all these years later, and holy cow, many of you have not done a damn thing differently other than say, man, we better really, do something, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's like, it hurts my head as a coach, as a motivator, as a business person. It hurts my head to hear the same statement. We keep repeating the same story, and we're not doing anything to change the ending of the story, right? And it's I know you feel it too, because you get the same calls. And so, and this days of throwing a job ad somewhere and having a bunch of people flood in, it is not cutting it. It's not cutting it in our industry or any other industry. And so, there's all the basic things, right? People are aging out of our industry. We know they're aging out. The average age of the technician and all is somewhere, I think, late 40s, early 50s. Yeah. And so, that's changing, right? Nobody has been telling their kids for years, when you grow up, honey, please, I want you to be a technician. That would make us so proud and bring such honor to our family, right? We know that. All the basics we know, it's a hard job, right? You're on your feet if we're talking about techs, but even service advisors, you're on your feet. You have to sort of multitask. There's a level of production and speed you have to have, and so on. And then it seems like in our industry, as soon as they get enough experience and really get good and hone their craft, then it's like, okay, now you're slowing down and what, right? So we have all of that. That's always been a thing, right? So we already had that stuff kind of stacking up. Now we add in, here comes, government, unemployment things, right? And people, and I don't want to get into a political thing, right? But there's a lack of incentive now for some people to go to work and get a job, right? Because we're giving monies. And then there's all... Yeah. Pardon?
To stay home. Yeah.
Yeah, to stay home. Right. And so there's that piece. And people are not driving. They're not getting their driver's licenses until they're like in their early 20s, if that. So we have less car, so many things. And then we have people not wanting to work, which is just super fun too. And then now we have these new generations that are coming through that people love to hate and pick on, that have decided, you know what, we're not going to be married to our job. We're going to have a fulfilled life outside of work. And work is not going to be the foundation or the bedrock of our life. we are going to do our thing, and you be you, I'll be me. And, I'll fit my job in there somewhere. And if I don't have fun there anymore, I'm moving on. So, wow, there's that, right? So we add all of that in there, and then we have everybody being sick. And so you're needing to hire like 1.5 person per position so that when everyone is sick and in their rotation, all right. And then now have you heard or seen anything on the portfolio careers?
What do you mean by that?
So I'm going to be soapboxy here, and I'm sorry. And I don't mean it to sound soapboxy. I just am still wrapping my head around and looking at this as a positive thing. But the new sort of thing with like the portfolio careers is where a long time ago, when we would look at a resume and saw somebody went from job to job to job, 6 months, 8 months, a year, we'd say, oh, we're not hiring that person. They can't hold down a job. People are purposely job hopping, or whatever you want to call it, and going from job to job to job to get different experience, to experience life, to find our calling, our passion, right? And so this is like becoming more prevalent in what's going on. And so not only are they doing different positions and, not staying in different all careers, industries, right? They want to fulfill all their stuff. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? So in order to do that, if they love making cupcakes and they love working on cars, they want to work Monday and Tuesday making cupcakes somewhere. And then they want to work Wednesday and Thursday working on cars. And then Friday, they want to work, I don't know, somewhere else.
Don't want to work. Yeah.
Where they don't want to work. So holy cow, like when you talk about a perfect storm of everything that and we're losing people to other industries. And then the last thing, and I know I'm rambling, and I swear I will let you talk. I'm seeing on a lot of the boards and groups for especially our industry is to go and kind of shop around and go to different shops in the area, interview with them, have them make you an offer, see what their benefits are and all of that. And then bring all of that back to your current employer and say, here's all the other things I got. So I hate the word unpack, but so much to unpack here. So just, holy cow.
I think like when you list off everything that you just did, it can really become overwhelming for a shop right away, right? Because you're thinking like all of these variables are working against me. I don't even know where to start. This is brutal. What do I do? And that's something we work with our shops on, is trying to understand that. But I think there's so much more that goes beyond that. And I always talk about how in marketing, one of the biggest things is figuring out what's different about you, right? Like what is different about you? And we talk about that with a lot of shops. Yeah. And a lot of times shops just don't know that. They don't know that there's anything unique about them. And so for me, what I think is the coolest part of a shop, one, is that you have content rolling in the door every day. You could be telling your story through the things that you're repairing in the shop in general. But two, we have cool stories to tell. Many cool stories. My dad still has his independent shop in small town Wisconsin. That's going into 30 years in business, an ATI client. And it's such a cool story of how he started. The reason I had to work in that shop when I was 9 years old is because he didn't have any money. He didn't have any money to hire anybody. So it led to me answering phones and filling out deposit slips and doing whatever I could to help out around the shop, but has really evolved into be a really, really good business and have a fun culture. I think a lot of times if a technician goes to a shop that might not treat them all that well, they think every shop is that way, right? And
it's a bad rap for sure. It is.
Yeah. And once you get that taste in your mouth, especially if you're a tech that's been to a couple shops that haven't treated them well, and not only just from the standpoint of the benefits they offer, the pay they offer, but is it a fun place to work at? Is it a good place to come work at? Is it a place that you don't dread coming to work every day? And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would have for a shop is first to look in the mirror and see, are you a good place to work at? Foundationally, are you offering things like competitive pay so that they can take care of their family, and not just saying it, but actually doing it, right? Like looking at what all the other shops are paying, really doing an honest assessment of who you are, because then you can build stuff out from there. If you're not great in those aspects, you're going to have a really tough time, and not just a tough time getting new technicians, but keeping the ones you already have, because obviously there's such a shortage. These people are wanting technicians. Every shop needs a technician right now, it feels like. So you're going to have a tough time keeping the people you have. And if you have a tough time keeping the people you have, it's really hard to bring new people in on top of that. So I think really the very first thing for me in a position to where we talk with shops all over the country every day, that's my first piece of advice, is to look inward, look to see, are you offering a competitive position? Is it something where if you put yourself in the shoes of that technician or that service writer or whoever it is that you're bringing in, is it a good place for them to be at? And if it is, don't shy away from telling your story. Understand why you're unique. One thing that drives me absolutely nuts is when somebody puts free uniforms in a job advertisement, because that's an expectation, right? Like that's something that if I'm coming to work and I'm going to get dirty every day, I would assume that I'm getting uniforms.
We still have some of the older guard, right? That's holding on to this is the way my parents did it, or this is the way when I worked at the dealership coming up the ranks. And that's where we have to just throw everything out we ever thought about, had when it comes to hiring, when it comes to engaging people, and start with a clean slate. Because as you said, that free uniforms, or one of the big things years ago is you have your nights and weekends off, right? And that was like, wow, earth shattering. That's still in everybody's ads today. It's a given with people today. They're not working a weekend. They're not working at night. So that's not an eye catcher. Okay, you don't have to work weekends and nights, right? It's that doesn't attract anybody, because they're assuming they're not going to. They already know,
right?
And even the benefits that you talked about, we have to start getting more creative, because if anybody and anybody listening, I really want you to look up the other, job advertisements or postings in your area, and even not just your industry, not just the automotive industry, and see what does it say. And they all say like family owned, award winning, competitive pay, weekends off. So what, or 401k, great, but I don't care. I could get that anywhere. So what can you do for me? And
Mm-hmm.
we are in a world of what's in it for me. And so if we don't start making that shift, and boy, our automotive folks are making that shift, kicking and screaming. I mean, they're digging in, and but to make that shift, and some of our members are doing such incredible things, like something simple as hiring somebody to do the landscaping for their internal customers, right? So that when they work all week and hopefully they're engaged and they're producing and doing things for you, that they don't have to go home and mow the lawn or do whatever, right? But then again, at the same time, we have to remember to ask each person, because mowing the lawn might be your quiet time or how you get zen. For me, that is not, right? So we have to also get away from that. Everybody has the same exact benefits. So I know with health insurance, I mean, there's federal regulations, but because you would respond well to having the lawn mowed, but somebody else may not. So, and I also see some of our members, they're offering like 3 different packages, and giving them the option of, this pay comes with these benefits, and this time off, this pay comes with this set, and so on. And we're seeing such a higher level of engagement when the internal customers kind of getting to pick, like, this is what's important to me, so I'm opting for this package. Are you seeing that in some of the other shops going on?
Yeah, and everything from benefits to pay, right? Like, we're seeing more hybrid type pay plans from both dealerships and independents, where either they get a combination of flat rate and hourly, or they get hourly or flat rate, depending on what they want. I think having the ability to choose what a technician wants is really beneficial, right? It gives them some feeling of control over their life. And in a lot of cases, if it's like, hey, this is what you're going to get, good luck. Sometimes when you're that rigid, it really is a deterrent from that really, really good technician to come work for you, right? And I think giving them some control, I think we all aspire to have control, right? Like we all, I think, naturally want control over our lives. And if you can give that employee, that team member, some sense of control over what they have or what their offering is going to be, I think it just helps just satisfaction in general, even for your internal team members as it is, right? Like I think that's a really big benefit. And I think the industry's starting to turn that direction more. Sometimes I get really, really excited about what I'm seeing, and then like 2 weeks later, I'll look at something and be like, "Oh no, it's going back."
We're doing the backslide. That when you can offer things and allow that internal customer to make a choice, it goes so much further with commitment versus compliance, right? When they're part of the decision and they have a choice and they don't feel like, this is corporate and I'm not being a slave to whatever, giving them a choice. Something else I wish our people and any business owner would stop doing, offering somebody a week's paid vacation. Please take that out of your ads. That is not attracting anybody anywhere. A lot of people have much more than that already. And so they're not going to leave wherever they're at with 4 or 5 weeks to come and get a week after being with you for 12 months, right? And they don't think about, well, if you go to the doctors, if you give a week's paid vacation, that's 5 PTO days, right? If you go to the doctors one of the days and another day you're going to see your kid at a recital, okay, now we're left with 3 vacation days. And the shift, I see all kinds of things online about, I had to fill out an employee, vacation request form. I'm not requesting it. That's my time. I earned it. I'm telling you. And whether we agree with that sentiment or not, we better start understanding and how to work with that to our advantage, right? And seeing the positives in this and looking at, and even the portfolio career and somebody working 2 days a week here and 2 there. If that makes them more passionate about what they do, if that makes them happy when they get up in the morning, so you're getting the best version of them that they have, why are we just so afraid to try these things? Like, why?
Yeah. And I'll quote my good friend George Ahrens from ASE, who he talks about this a lot in some of the content that I've done with him. But he says, all of us gray hairs and no hairs lived to work when we were growing up. And he said, I think this next generation is working to live. And I love what he says following that is, he says, and they might have it right. And so that is such an impactful piece to understand, is that, if you want those people to come to work fired up and ready to do some great stuff, maybe you need to look at this through a different lens a little bit. And that, when we were growing up, we just loved to work, right? It was our passion. That's, for me, growing up in a shop, we didn't go on vacations. We were in the shop all the time, weekends, nights, whatever. Like, we were just always there. And
well, when there was a holiday and the shop was closed, that was the time to get in and do organized inventory or make labels or, do something exciting like that.
We actually had little cardboard cutouts for the windows that were in the garage doors in the shop, so that if we were working after hours, we could pop those in and not have to worry about people knocking on the door. So
that's the best thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, because you'd always inevitably have somebody with a flat tire or something like that after hours, and you're just trying to get your personal stuff done, or trying to get caught up with shop related stuff. And
I'm laughing so hard because I can't even tell you, like, the pain in the pit of your stomach when you're in the shop on a Saturday or doing something, and here comes this customer interrupting us, It's like,
it sounds terrible, but it's so true.
How dare you come in, whatever, instead of being and embracing and what's possible, like, wow, I can help this person and be a great human and make their life better and whatever. It's like, oh, but I just don't, don't make eye contact.
Yeah, it was that way, and I feel terrible saying it, but it's also like when you're not supposed to be there in the first place, but we were just always there. It was something where you had to do what you could do just to get some stuff done prior to being, done and back to the shop again Monday morning. So, yeah, it was always fascinating to see how you could get around that a little bit.
So speaking of that, the people today don't want to work to live, right? I mean, they don't. And maybe they do have it right? I mean, studies have shown how many hours a day working and all of those things and the stress. And so, having somebody come to work every day being miserable I'd rather have 10 part-time people for a day or two a week that wanted to be there, that loved what they did, that really gave my customers the attention they need, that was part of my team and really in the moment, than somebody there 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 being miserable. Interesting thing about that, and I think every life is circles, right? I mean, there's always those jokes. You start out in diapers and you go through life, you end up, all these things. But I did a show the other day with two of our younger coaches that some of the people don't want to listen to because they're young, and it's like their ideas are just crazy. And so we went through this whole thing about like Gen Z and millennials, Gen X is baby boomers, and Gen Z, everything is like better alignment with their values, that, they want more opportunities learned and get an expertise. They want better benefits and they want, more time off. And so some of the baby boomers were commenting and saying, all they care about is time off. And then when you ask all the baby boomers, what would you like? What would make you happy? I'd like more time to spend with my family. So it's like, wait a minute. Why are we criticizing, the Gen Z and the millennials for wanting more time with their family? Because you saw how much you missed going through life and working all the time. And now you're wanting that same thing. So how dare we begrudge them of wanting time?
Well, so it's funny that you say that. I sat in a conference a couple of years ago, and I thought this was the funniest. This was pre-pandemic. But it was one of the funniest presentations I've seen, where this lady was the keynote speaker and it was this big stage and she had these big video boards behind her, and it was a cover of Time magazine, but the dates were covered, and it basically was going through a generation complaining about the younger generation below them, and basically stating everything like boomers say the baby boomers say right now about millennials. But when they removed the cover, it was from like the 70s, and it was the generation or two above the baby boomers that were complaining about them. And it was the same exact stuff that we're complaining, baby boomers are complaining about millennials now. We're people blaming the baby boomers for that same thing. So it's those generational gaps aren't new. It's just that
no, they're not.
It's just always there, right? And I think when you understand that as a business owner and you take a step back and listen to the people and really understand different perspectives, I think it can give you some clarity on where they're coming from, right? So rather than just saying, those damn 20-somethings don't want to work, it's more like sitting down with them and understanding, what is it that you value and how can we cater to that? And sometimes it's really tough for maybe, and I don't want to pick on baby boomers, but baby boomers specifically grew up in a different environment. And so they value different things. And regardless, and I say this to young techs too, is if you can pull your boss aside and say, hey, what is it that you value? What is it that you care about? And really go beyond just like, hey, I'm coming to work, picking up a paycheck and going home. Yeah. But if you can understand each other. Yeah, exactly. And if you're a young tech and you're out there and you've got another, say a veteran technician that's been in the industry for decades, if you can sit down and pick their brain and understand where they come from, you'll have a better understanding of what they value. And I don't think we do that enough, not only in this industry, but in the world as a whole, is just sit down and listen and understand the opposite person's perspective. And I think that can bring you a lot of good. It can tell you as a business owner, maybe some of the things you need to tweak, or maybe that benefit that you're trying to add this is something that everybody would value. And if we offer it, that's going to make everybody more happy. It's going to make our staff more likely to stay. It's going to make recruiting other people easier to come to work for us. But I think it all starts with listening and understanding what people value.
Absolutely. One of the things that's popping in my head right now is some of our shops, they're buying dinner once a week for their team, for their family, right? So whether it's pizza or chicken or whatever, and doing it. Well, do you think that those significant others at home on the other end that, is going to be never let them leave when they're taken away, one night of the cooking or doing whatever? And I think, again, like you said, listening. So if spending time with your family or, being home in time for dinner is something really important, then how do we enhance that? And how do we go one step up? So not only let's give them off enough time to get home for dinner, but how about we provide dinner? Like what? And if in turn they are more engaged, I mean, it's gold, right? We always look at the cost of things immediate up front. It's like, I can't afford to buy dinner for those people, or I can't afford to do lawn service or whatever, but you can't afford to not engage the people and care about the individuals, what they want, right? Because if anyone has not gotten serious about hiring too, and she's out of time already, but real quick, Jay, I know it's huge. Pet peeve, for both of us, but the consistency of looking for internal customers, right? It's like we throw an ad up there and then, we ask, how's that going? What kind of, I don't know. I put an ad 2 months ago. I didn't get nothing. Or I'm full. I can't, do anything. Can you speak to that for a minute? And then will you come back again to kind of finish this conversation?
100%. I'll come back anytime you want, Kim. Yes, my number one pet peeve, right, is when a shop fills their roster and they feel fat and happy, everything's great and wonderful, and then they just stop doing the stuff that started to lead them to getting some really good candidates to look at. And I think what happens when you do that is you end up making some really bad hires because you get desperate, right? Somebody gets in a car accident or a technician leaves you end up trying to hire somebody as fast as possible because the pressure points of the customers coming in the door isn't backing off. It just seems like shops get busier and busier and busier. And so to me, consistently having a process, having a plan, and following through on that plan is so important. And especially when you're full staffed, it drives me absolutely insane when somebody says, we don't need to keep looking for techs. We're full. And then 6 months later, inevitably they're short a person and they can't find anybody. And they're frustrated when they put an ad out and in a month they haven't gotten any applicants. So having some level of consistency and a routine in going in and really understanding what works. And honestly, I think that's a big piece too, is not everything is going to work in your specific geographic region. So figuring out what works and, how you get word of mouth out there. How do you get people to talk about the fact that you're hiring? And how did you get people to look at you as a destination shop, not just another shop that's hiring? I think that is something that drives me absolutely insane. And shops could put themselves in such a better position if they did it consistently. And if people take anything from this, it's have a plan, be consistent with the plan, and really execute. Because if you don't, your life isn't going to change. You're always going to be struggling to find techs.
Absolutely. And so well said. It's just same thing with marketing. They do the same thing as soon as a shop gets busy. A lot of them turn off the marketing and it's like, oh my gosh, if you watch TV, Ford and Chevy have been advertising trucks for 2 years, but there's not one to be had because there aren't any chips. But Ford and Chevy didn't say, we're not going to advertise anymore until we get these chips in. That call didn't come from upstairs and saying, Jay, pull that truck ad. We don't have any chips. And as soon as we get some, we'll put it back. They don't. But, my favorite analogy about hiring in a panic, like you just said, is it's equivalent going grocery shopping when you're hungry. You're not making great decisions. You're being impulsive. You're in the moment. You're just looking to fill that immediate void. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate everything you do, and am always willing and able to be on the podcast. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And all of Jay's contacts and LinkedIn and for the podcast and for WrenchWay and everything is going to be in the comments. So make sure that you check them out. And Jay, I hope to see you back here soon. If you can call me, have your people call my people. And let's get set up for part 2 to this, because there's so much about hiring regardless of everything else that's going on. And so everybody stay safe, make good choices, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.